Welcome back to Red Panda Dusty, here for another episode of Movie of the Year. We're doing 2018 today, and you can probably guess what my choice is. But the runner-ups were Deadpool 2 and Bohemian Rhapsody, both very solid movies. And of course, there were plenty of other movies in 2018, Infinity War, though that one's kind of hard to review because it kind of exists in a space that needs 8+ movies before it for you to understand. So it seems kind of odd to put that in there. And there was also Ocean's 8, which kind of fell on its face compared to the old Ocean's movies. Solo, it was pretty good. But yeah, I figured I'd go for Spider-Man. It's kind of the artistic movie of the big blockbusters, I think. A lot of interesting stuff going on. Very, very good music. That's first big positive I have. You hear a lot of the local artists from Brooklyn, Biggie Smalls. I forget what the song was, but whatever they used for the scene where he's doing his graffiti in the subway tunnel, that was really well done and edited into the scene, which I'm always a fan of. And the art style. The art style was a big part of this movie because the Spider-Man all come from different universes, so they kind of mixed the art styles together, and it really works well. And they used a lot of comic booky type stuff. They used lots of bright colors and very, very bright movie. I really like the way it was animated, which is rare for me to say. I don't watch many animated movies outside of like solid computer animation stuff like Pixar. But this one is kind of like a hybrid of a drawn style. I presume it was mainly computer animated, but it's a drawn style of computer animation. Like, I guess I already talked about comic book writing. I do find it interesting. They went for sort of an alternate universe thing because our universe is Spider-Man, even though we don't have a Spider-Man in the real world. It's weird. Is the what I dubbed the dad bod Spider-Man. He's actually from a world that has all the right brands. They exemplify this in his explanation of how he ended up in the movies universe. In that there's a big Coca-Cola sign in his little montage, and then when he comes into the movies world, it's like Coca Soda or something. It seems like they just took all of the brands they could think of and then made it just slightly different. Like there's like Red X instead of FedEx. What else was there? The weird one is that they, instead of NYPD, it's PDNY. It's like, okay. So in this universe, they say police department of the city instead of the city's police department. It's that one seemed pretty forced to me. But I think Sony is in both universes because Spider-Man is owned by Sony, so they wanted to put their brand in there. But all the other brands are different. Okay. What do we have now? Ooh, Power Discovery. I think that was done interestingly. I mean, complete with the scene where he accidentally falls out of a window and ends up like clinging to the side of the building, and it's like, okay. They kind of had some interesting stuff with that, and they kind of had him. He said his thoughts were loud, and that was really well done visually. It was kind of loud visually as well as being loud. I guess they didn't really make it loud in the audio, but the visual was, here's all these people and all these voices going on, and he can hear it all because he's got super spidey hearing now. Definitely like that part. And they visualized the spider sense pretty well. Like you would see all the spiders would just have blink, 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 blink when their spider sense went off. So you could kind of. I feel like it brings you closer to the character, and you can feel. You get another emotional connector to them, and you can see, oh, his spider sense just went off. There was this weird part about there being like, it's like there can't be two Spider-Men, can there? It's like, well, if there's one Spider-Man, why can't there be another Spider-Man? I mean, I guess not everybody knows the origin story of Spider-Man, but I mean, he was bitten by a radioactive spider. There's no reason that couldn't happen to somebody else. If getting bitten by said spider makes you Spider-Man, then anybody bitten by that spider would become Spider-Man. I mean, I assume. Because it's like Captain America, though. There's only one Captain America. You'd think there could be more, but you have to have the right person and all that stuff. I think, we're getting up to Chris Pine's Spider-Man. I really like Chris Pine as Spider-Man. I don't know why the two Spider-Mans who look identical are voiced by different actors. That seemed like an odd choice, but yeah, we see Chris Pine. He is the movie's Spider-Man at the beginning, and spoiler alert, he does die pretty early in the movie. But he has a funny quote that I wanted to say, is that I can't let you open a portal to another dimension. Brooklyn's not zoned for that. And then he's fighting with Green Goblin for a little bit. And then another quote is, Staten Island maybe, but Brooklyn? No, we can't do Brooklyn. It's very entertaining to me. Yes, and positive for Chris Pine. And then I really like the way Kingpin is done in this movie. Maybe not so much visually. It was an interesting idea. He's got his like little head this small and his body's like that big. It's like, okay. But I feel like he was voiced pretty well in a menacing but still likable way, I suppose. I do question this movie on how the Spider-Men actually end up in the universe. It's not completely clear why the Thing just pulled Spider-Man in and didn't pull anybody else in. I don't know. If it might be because you do see Green Goblin shoves Spider-Man's head through the portal. So it then decided to somehow pull people who have the same mutation as him. What? I mean, it would make sense if it was Peter Parker's that got pulled through, but only one Peter Parker came through. I guess Nicolas Cage's noir Spider-Man is technically Peter Parker, but Penny Parker is not the same person. Well, maybe she is. Okay, the only real problem there is Gwen, then, because she's definitely not the stand-in for Peter Parker, because her Peter Parker is dead and all that stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me. Another a quote from Kingpin here, where he sees Miles up in the rafters, and all he says is, "Kill that guy." It's the delivery. The delivery makes it work. I like that. And then when they get to the super secret laboratory, which I guess it wasn't actually super secret, but whatever. I like how Spider-Man is very... It's like, yeah, I done this before. It's like, oh, he's about to say, you have 2 weeks. It's like, oh, okay. Or 24 hours or whatever it was. And then it's funny when they steal the computer and Miles is running with the monitor. And he's like, okay, the good news is we don't need the monitor. And then just throws the monitor. It's not as funny in hindsight as I thought it was. And then they sneak out through the cafeteria, and he has to steal a bagel. And he said he would steal a bagel in his plans. It's very funny. And then all of the scientists eating lunch, they were all like, "It's Spider-Man!" with all their fancy rifles. It's very funny. And you do hear one of them cry out. He's like, "He took a bagel! Get him!" And they all run after him, and then they escape quite easily, actually. And then they're introduced to Gwen, and then they go to Aunt May's house and they're introduced to the other three, Penny and what is his name, Porker, Peter Porker or something. I don't remember the little Looney Tunes-esque Spider-Man, and then Nicolas Cage's noir Spider-Man, who's I think he's still Peter Parker. I think. But it's kind of cool to see them, and they definitely picked ones that were artistically interesting, less character development from those three. They don't get as much as they really should, compared to Peter and Miles and Gwen, who actually get pretty substantial character development. Miles, in particular, he's the main character, so yeah, he would. So I guess that's a negative, actually, that they don't flesh out those two. Lack the flesh. That's what I typed. That's not helpful. And it does seem odd to me how fast Kingpin manages to rebuild the Super Collider thing. Because from my perception, the movie is like 2-3 days long. How does Kingpin build a Super Collider in 3 days? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway. And then they have the deep emotional part of the movie, as I like to call it. Miles' uncle gets killed, and then his dad blames Spider-Man and chases Spider-Man and all this stuff. And then Miles is upset, as he would be, and then gets through, and his dad, talks to him through a wall while he's tied to a chair and all this. I've got to be honest, I kind of checked out in that part in my last viewing, but it's all good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's as it should be. Definitely a well-told story. And overall, I think this movie was very well-paced. I don't think there was any major downer. I mean, because Spider-Man 2 is that the middle of that movie just depresses me. Or, well, yeah, because he stops being Spider-Man, and then he's really depressed, and then he stops being Spider-Man, and then everything is great again. And yeah, whatever. I forget Spider-Man 2 completely, but that was the vibe I got from it, was that it just has this slump in the middle. It's just like, but after that, he kind of gets his courage back and starts to really push to be Spider-Man, and there's sort of a what I call the suit-up, power-up montage where he gets some technology from Aunt May, because this universe's Spider-Man had a huge spider cave. Doesn't actually explain who's funding him. It's probably Tony Stark. I mean, who else would it be? And that kind of leads into the final battle in the Super Collider, which was destroyed at the beginning of the movie. Anyway, that's kind of interesting because you have all of the Spider-Man all fighting. And I guess this is like the second time that happens, because they all have a fight in Aunt May's house when Miles' uncle shows up. I forget what his supervillain name is, but you kind of get to see their different fighting styles. I mean, noir Spider-Man is very almost boxing style of classic punch up, but then Peter Porker comes in and just drops an anvil on the guy's head. Was it? I think it was Green Goblin they were fighting then. But it's funny how it's just like a serious fight, and then anvil, bang. I think there was a lot of fun they could have with Peter Porker, and they kind of just did the tip of the iceberg of the entertaining stuff that happens in cartoons. It's that if you actually had that power, you'd be pretty powerful. And then he of course brings out his giant hammer that he later gives to Miles. He's like, "It'll fit in your pocket. It's fine." And so he just with this big wooden comical hammer, and it's interesting that he can use that. What in a cartoon would be very comical, in this is actually a very valid fighting technique, because he's got a lot of oomph behind his swing. which makes sense because in cartoons, like everything is exaggerated. So it's like, yeah, he has more force, but the villain he's just gonna bounce off, right? Everyone's made of rubber in a cartoon. Everything just bounces right off, right? So he has that force, but it's not going to bounce off someone in a more realistic world. It's, it just, oh, there's so much they could have done with that. But that's basically the end of the movie. I mean, they all go back to their respective universes, and then Miles defeats Kingpin, and his dad shows up, and then he calls his dad. He's sort of having an emotional moment with his dad, and then he's like, "Oh fuck it," and turns the phone off, and then he comes down as Spider-Man, and then talks in his very deep voice. It's like, "I look forward to working with you," and all that stuff. And then he gives his dad a hug as Spider-Man. So his dad is like, "What the fuck? Okay." And then Kingpin gets arrested, and that's it. I think it was a very well made movie. I mean, makes Spider-Man very likable. And I don't want to say it's that much better than Homecoming. I do like Homecoming, but I feel like this movie is more artistic with its use of music and its use of visual style. It's a lot less of the summer blockbuster, though it is still a blockbuster action movie. I think it has some kind of more artistic. I don't know anything better than the word artistic. It's not like it's a deep movie or anything. It's a pretty basic plot, but it's done very well. I guess it's a lot like Mad Max. It's a simple idea done very well. And it works. I really, apart from like not fleshing out the other three characters, I really don't have any negatives. That's how many positives is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. About 15 positives and 1 negative. I haven't done 2019 and 2020 yet, so I don't know what those are going to get, but hopefully that's a good score.